I'd like to tell you all a story about my sister Emma, I said into the microphone at her wedding reception. A story about the kind of person she is. My sister was beaming at me from the head table, thinking I was about to give a heartfelt maid of honor speech. But I had something else planned. I pulled out my phone and started reading her text messages out loud, the ones where she said my college graduation wasn't important enough for her to attend. 150 wedding guests went dead silent as I exposed 2 years of lies. Emma's perfect wedding day was about to become her worst nightmare. Quick, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and how your day is going. Now, if you've ever dealt with a toxic family member who plays the victim, smash that subscribe button because this story is about serving justice ice cold. Hit that like button if you think people who lie to make themselves look good deserve consequences. Let's dive into this family drama. Let me paint you a picture of what was supposed to be one of the most important days of my life. My name is Sarah, and I need to give you some background to understand why what happened at my sister's wedding was pure, calculated justice. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. My parents dropped out of high school to start working, and while they're incredibly hardworking people, they always dreamed that one of their kids would make it academically. My sister Emma and I are 2 years apart. She's older, and growing up, she was always the golden child. Better grades in high school, more friends, dated the captain of the football team. You know the type. When I got accepted to State University on a partial scholarship, my parents were over the moon. Emma? Not so much. She had chosen to go straight into cosmetology school after high school, which was a perfectly valid choice, but I think my college acceptance made her feel like she was being overshadowed for the first time in her life. The 4 years I was in college were tense. Every time I came home for the holidays, Emma would make little comments. She'd look me up and down and say, "Oh, look who's too good for community college now." Or she'd roll her eyes when I talked about my classes and mutter, "I bet you think you're so much smarter than all of us." When I'd mention my coursework, she'd laugh dismissively and announce to the room, "College is just an expensive way to delay getting a real job." My parents would tell her to knock it off, but she'd just shrug it off like she was joking. The worst part was how she'd undermine my achievements. When I made the dean's list sophomore year, she told everyone at our family barbecue loudly, so I could hear, "Grades don't matter in the real world anyway." When I got accepted for a competitive internship junior year, she smirked and said, "You probably only got it because of diversity quotas." And when I told the family I was graduating summa cum laude, she actually rolled her eyes and said with fake sweetness, "Well, congratulations on being the smartest person in a room full of 20-year-olds. But I pushed through. I kept my head down, worked my ass off, and finally, graduation day arrived. My graduation was on a Saturday in May. I had ordered tickets months in advance, 4 tickets for my parents, Emma, and her boyfriend Derek. I had specifically asked Emma to save the date back in January, and she had promised she'd be there. She grabbed my hands and said sincerely, "Wouldn't miss it for the world, little sister." The week before graduation, my phone rang. It was Emma, and I could hear music in the background. "Hey, so Derek's band got offered this amazing gig on Saturday," she said, her voice bright with excitement. "It's their first paid show, and it could really launch their music career. I know it's your graduation, but this is huge for us." I was quiet for a long moment, processing what she'd just said. Finally, I managed to respond, "Emma, this is my college graduation. I'm the first person in our family to graduate college." I know, she said quickly, "but you'll have other graduations, right? Like when you get your master's or whatever." This might be Derek's only shot. I could feel my chest tightening. Other graduations? "Emma, this is my bachelor's degree. This is it. This is the big one." She sighed dramatically, like I was being unreasonable. "Look, I'll try to make it work, but I can't promise anything. Derek's career has to come first." Derek's career. His band played covers at dive bars and had 17 followers on Instagram. The morning of graduation, I sent Emma a text, "What time are you guys heading over? Ceremony starts at 10. Her response came 2 hours later, "So sorry. Derek's sound check is running long. We're not going to make it. But congratulations. So proud of you." I stared at that text for a full minute. She wasn't coming. My own sister wasn't coming to my college graduation because her boyfriend's band had a gig at some dive bar. The ceremony was beautiful. My parents were crying, taking pictures of everything. But there was an empty seat next to them that felt like a black hole. When they called my name and I walked across that stage, I looked out at the audience and saw my parents beaming with pride. And I saw that empty chair where my sister should have been. After the ceremony, my parents and I went to dinner at this nice steakhouse downtown. We were halfway through our meal when my mom's phone started buzzing with text messages. My mom looked down at her phone, confused. It's Emma. She's asking why we didn't invite her to dinner. My dad looked up from his steak, fork halfway to his mouth. What do you mean didn't invite her? She said she couldn't come to graduation. My mom was scrolling through the messages, her brow furrowed. She says she came to graduation but we had already left, and now she's hurt that we're having dinner without her. I felt my stomach drop. Show me the messages. Emma had sent a paragraph-long text about how she had rushed over after Derek's sound check and got there just as the ceremony was ending and looked everywhere for us, but we had disappeared without telling her where we were going for dinner. She said she was really hurt that we would exclude her from the celebration and that she didn't understand why we were being so cold to her. I probably said it too loudly for the restaurant. This is complete bullshit. She told me this morning she wasn't coming. She said Derek's sound check was more important. My parents looked confused and hurt. They didn't know what to believe, and Emma was really good at playing the victim. She had years of practice. Over the next few days, Emma told everyone in our extended family her version of events. According to her, she had moved heaven and earth to make it to my graduation, had literally run from Derek's gig to get there, and had arrived just in time to see me walk across the stage. But then our parents and I had abandoned her and gone to dinner without telling her where we were going. By the end of the week, I was getting calls from aunts and cousins. My Aunt Linda called first, her voice stern. Why are you being so mean to Emma? Family should stick together. My cousin Jessica followed up with, Emma said you excluded her from your celebration dinner. That's really cold, even for you. Emma had painted herself as the devoted sister who had sacrificed her boyfriend's important gig to support me, only to be cruelly excluded from the celebration. I showed people the text messages where she said she wasn't coming, but Emma had an explanation for everything. When confronted, she put on her innocent voice and said, I was trying to manage Derek's expectations. I didn't want to promise I'd be there if the sound check ran too long. But I always planned to try my best. The thing is, Emma was always good at this. She was good at rewriting history, at making herself the victim, at turning situations around so that everyone else was the bad guy. She had been doing it our whole lives, and she was really good at it. But this time, she had gone too far. She had not only missed the most important day of my life, but she had then lied about it and made me look like the villain. She had stolen my moment of triumph and turned it into family drama where I was somehow the bad guy. I decided that if Emma wanted to play games, I could play games too. I just had to wait for the right moment. That moment came 2 years later when Emma got engaged to Derek. Apparently, his music career hadn't exactly taken off. Shocking, I know, but they were in love and ready to start their life together. Emma called me one evening, her voice bubbling with excitement. I have something to ask you, she said, and I could practically hear her smiling through the phone. I know we've had our differences, but you're my sister. I can't imagine getting married without you standing next to me. Will you be my maid of honor? I paused for just a moment, then said warmly, of course, Emma. I'd be honored. I agreed to be her maid of honor. I helped plan her bachelorette party, organized the bridal shower, and even helped her find her dress. I was the picture of a supportive sister. But the whole time, I was planning. Emma's wedding was going to be the social event of the year for our family. She had invited 150 people, every cousin, every family friend, every person who had heard her version of the graduation story. She had been planning this wedding for 8 months, and it was going to be perfect. The night before the wedding, I did something I had never done before. I wrote a speech. Emma's wedding was beautiful. She looked gorgeous in her dress, Derek looked handsome in his tux, and the venue was decorated exactly how she had envisioned it. The ceremony was sweet, the cocktail hour was fun, and dinner was delicious. Then came the speeches. Derek's best man went first with a funny story about their college days. Emma's best friend followed with a sweet speech about their friendship. Then the MC called my name. I stood up, holding my champagne glass, and looked out at the room full of people. All of our extended family was there. Everyone who had heard Emma's version of the graduation story. Everyone who had been told I was the mean sister who had excluded poor Emma from my celebration. I'd like to tell you all a story about my sister Emma, I began, my voice clear and strong. A story about the kind of person she is, and the kind of sister she's been to me. Emma was beaming at me from the head table, probably thinking I was about to deliver a heartfelt speech about sisterly love. 2 years ago, I graduated from college. I was the first person in our family to earn a bachelor's degree, and it was one of the proudest moments of my life. I had 4 tickets to the ceremony, one for each of my parents, one for Emma, and one for Derek. The room was listening intently. I could see some people nodding, remembering the graduation drama. Emma promised she would be there. She grabbed my hands and told me, "Wouldn't miss it for the world, little sister." But the week before graduation, she called me with some bad news. Derek's band had gotten a gig, their first paid show, and it was scheduled for the same day as my graduation. I paused, looking directly at Emma. Her smile was starting to fade. Emma told me she was sorry, but Derek's career had to come first. She said, and I quote, "You'll have other graduations, right? Like when you get your master's or whatever. This might be Derek's only shot." The morning of graduation, she texted me to confirm that she wasn't coming. She wrote, "Derek's sound check is running long. We're not going to make it." The room was getting quieter. People were starting to look uncomfortable. So I graduated without my sister there. My parents and I went to dinner afterward to celebrate. And that's when Emma started texting my mom, asking why we hadn't invited her to dinner. She claimed she had come to graduation after all, that she had rushed over after Derek's sound check, and that she was hurt we had left without her. I could see Emma's face going pale. She was starting to realize where this was going. For the next week, Emma told everyone in our family her version of events. She said she had moved heaven and earth to make it to my graduation, that she had literally run from Derek's gig to get there, and that our parents and I had cruelly abandoned her. She painted herself as the devoted sister who had sacrificed her boyfriend's important gig to support me, only to be excluded from the celebration. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. "But I have something that might interest you all," I said, holding up my phone. I have the text messages from that morning. The ones where Emma told me she wasn't coming to graduation. The ones where she said Derek's sound check was more important than my college graduation. I started reading the messages out loud, word for word. Emma's exact text, "So sorry. Derek's sound check is running long. We're not going to make it." And then her follow-up messages to our mother, claiming she had rushed over and been abandoned. The room was dead silent. And then, after missing my graduation, she lied about it. She made up an elaborate story about rushing over and being abandoned. She turned my moment of triumph into family drama and made me look like the villain. And many of you believed her, because Emma has always been very good at playing the victim. I looked around the room at all the faces staring back at me. Some people looked shocked, others looked embarrassed, and a few looked angry, but not at me. "So here's to Emma," I said, raising my champagne glass. "My sister, who taught me that some people will always put themselves first, no matter what. And here's to learning that sometimes the people who should support you the most are the ones who will betray you the fastest." I took a sip of champagne and sat down. The room was absolutely silent. No one was clapping. No one was cheering. Everyone was just staring at Emma, who was sitting at the head table looking like she wanted to disappear. Finally, Derek's dad started clapping slowly, and a few other people joined in. But it was that awkward, uncomfortable applause that happens when people don't know what else to do. Emma stood up, her face red and her eyes filled with tears. Her voice was barely a whisper, "I need some air." Then she practically ran out of the reception hall. Emma's wedding never really recovered from my speech. People were talking about it for the rest of the night, but not in a good way. Several family members came up to me afterward to apologize for believing Emma's version of events. My Aunt Linda, who had called me after graduation to lecture me about being mean to Emma, pulled me aside. She looked embarrassed as she said, "I'm sorry, honey. I should have known better than to believe her without hearing your side first." Emma came back to the reception about 30 minutes later, but she was quiet for the rest of the night. She barely smiled during the cake cutting, and she looked miserable during her first dance with Derek. The next day, my phone rang. It was Emma, and she was sobbing. Through her tears, she choked out, "You ruined my wedding. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I will never forgive you for this." I stayed calm. "Good. Now you know how I felt when you missed my graduation and then lied about it." "But this was my wedding day," she wailed. "It was supposed to be perfect. And my graduation was supposed to be perfect too," I replied evenly. "But you decided Derek's dive bar gig was more important." The line went quiet for a moment, then I heard the click of her hanging up. That was 6 months ago. Emma and I haven't spoken since. Our parents have tried to play peacemaker, but I'm not interested in reconciling until Emma takes responsibility for what she did. Derek's band still hasn't made it big, by the way. They're still playing the same dive bars, still have the same 17 followers on Instagram. But hey, at least they had that one gig that was more important than my college graduation. Sometimes, toxic family members need to face the consequences for their actions. Sometimes, the truth needs to be told, even if it's uncomfortable. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply letting someone's own words speak for themselves. Emma taught me that some people will always put themselves first, no matter what. But she also taught me that I don't have to accept that behavior just because we share DNA. The truth is a powerful thing. Sometimes it's the only revenge you need. If you made it this far, you're part of the Revenge Story Hall of Fame. Hit that like button if you think toxic family members deserve consequences. Subscribe for more stories where justice is served with style. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? I read every single comment. Until next time, remember, the best revenge is living well, but sometimes it's also a well-timed truth bomb at a family dinner.